I think if you're a large-scale partner with really well-established enterprise, huge customers, I think there's value to having vendor focus. The opportunities that you're getting passed from Microsoft or the ones that you're sharing and you're hoping to receive back, they're going to want to know that there isn't a prospective competitor that's also being catwalked into that account. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're scale up, I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility to potentially have a practice that focuses on another vendor. However, I do think there needs to be a really solid narrative that you're playing back into each vendor that says, this is why we choose Microsoft and this is when we choose Microsoft.
Today, I'm learning from Lucy Bourne. Lucy is the co-founder and director of Oaka Studio in the UK. Oaka Studio, which just happened to celebrate its second birthday as we were recording, helps Microsoft partners level up in their Microsoft Alliance by helping them with their marketing, sales, and in the day-to-day operations of their Microsoft practice. Lucy is a former partner development manager from Microsoft, and she dives deep into what it takes to thrive in your alliance with Microsoft. As you'll hear in this episode, it's an area where I'm really struggling. Wrestling with Partner Center, trying to figure out whether a solution designation is worthwhile, or missing out on the recognition in deals where we weren't the invoicing CSP. Lucy cuts through all of that, helps us focus on what matters most in our Microsoft Alliance and the steps we need to take to succeed. Stick around if you want to learn whether focusing on a vertical or horizontal niche is going to be worthwhile, and the two sets of opposing characteristics alliance management teams need to have, and the approaches available for partners to market to prospective customers and to Microsoft sellers, and heaps more besides. Here's Lucy Bourne from Oaka Studio. Lucy, welcome to Practice Leading. It's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil. I'm really grateful to be invited and delighted to have this conversation with you.
Well, I wanted to have you on because I've been reflecting on Superware's Microsoft partnership, and it could be better. It could be a lot stronger. We could be a lot further along, and we're just bumping into all sorts of challenges. And I thought, who else can offer some advice, a shoulder to cry on? So thank you for having us in the show. For those who don't know you and your work, do you want to give us a quick intro, bit of background?
Absolutely, sure. So delighted to be here, as I say. My name is Lucy Bourne, and I am a co-director here at Oaka Studio. I set the business up 2 years ago yesterday, actually.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, thank you, with my partner, Lee Baker. And Oaka has a sole mission, which hopefully will help with the shoulder to cry on, Neil, and that is to support Microsoft partners creating a better, stronger relationship with Microsoft, establishing a solid sales, go-to-market and value proposition basis, or expanding on what you already have, and scaling your practice. So we tend to work with partners that are at one end of their journey or the other with their relationship with Microsoft. They're either a really efficient sales engine that's generating a bunch of opportunity, but their practice development is creaking and they're finding it hard to find the right people, or they're at the other end of the spectrum where they've got incredibly strong technical capability, their delivery is brilliant, their customers are very happy, but Microsoft don't know they exist, or the market don't know they exist, and most of their opportunities are coming from their network. So you'll be pleased to know that we find both ends of the spectrum, and hopefully that gives you comfort.
Great.
In terms of my history, before setting up Oaka, I looked after the business applications channel here for Microsoft in the UK. So my responsibility was to help specifically Dynamics and Power Platform partners to create IP, launch it on AppSource. I owned AppSource for the UK, so it was my responsibility to make sure that they were launching their capability effectively, but also to support services partners in scaling their practices and growing their relationship with Microsoft. So oddly enough, my day looks very similar at Oaka as to what it did at Microsoft.
I'm going to come back and ask you more about AppSource as well.
Oh, 100%. No, I could spend an hour talking just about AppSource. Before that, I was a part of the pre-sales team at Hitachi Solutions, where I had the pleasure of working alongside people like Chris Huntingford, Will Dorrington, Kyle Hill, learned a huge amount about describing the value of a solution and selling value over function and feature. And then before that, I was part of a scale-up Dynamics practice that landed Power Platform into loads of its customers when it was just Project Sienna, right? So way back when. So yeah, 16 years in this industry and delighted to be here still.
And does Oaka help Azure partners, modern work partners, or do you just focus on business applications these days?
Our heritage is business applications, and about 60% of our team are kind of from that background, but we have expanded quite rapidly into Azure, modern work and security partners as well. So yeah, no, we cover the full gamut of Microsoft solutions.
So whenever I got started in the UK, launched my little Microsoft partner business, 2006, David Braun was my partner development manager, and it seemed really pretty easy in those days to get started. I remember getting a gold competency in months with probably 3 or 4 staff, a couple of certifications, maybe a customer or two, and that was it. It seems a lot harder these days. Do you think it is getting harder, or is that just me getting older and grumpier?
No, undoubtedly it's getting more complicated. And, look, Neil, I can completely empathise. When I was at my first partner, we were the same, 5 people, gained a competency, was generating opportunities for Microsoft. These days, I will say, getting a solution designation, the capability that's taken over from these gold and silver competencies is more challenging. But with that, gives more opportunity to identify as unique within the Microsoft partner ecosystem, because it is that much more complicated. Gone are the days where you could have kind of 2 customer deployments and some certs. These days, there is a full gamut of certifications your team need to have. You do need to have really successful deployments, and also show growth in those deployments of your capability as well within certain solution areas. What I will say is, whilst it's harder to attain, the reward is far greater. So there is much more opportunity to receive funding from Microsoft once you've attained a solution designation, or indeed a specialization, the next layer up of the blue tick, if you like. And if you are able to build that kind of machine, if you like, into consuming those bits of funding from Microsoft, what we've found is it's much easier to retain a solution designation than it would have been in the old days. So yes, there is the legwork up front, and it is, you have to almost be Rain Man to work out what it is that you're missing, and have a real solid understanding of how to kind of claim your partner association or associate yourself to your customers. But once you've kind of got that methodology in place, and the best practice in place, and you've attained it, I would say it's much more beneficial to have these days than it ever used to be.
Yeah, I think you made a point there about the number of partners that had a competency, and it was getting ridiculous. I think 90% of partners are gold. There was no differentiation from the small ones to the big ones, the ones who invested a heap to the ones who invested nothing and just getting started. So yeah, it's maybe for the best. It's just frustratingly hard to get started. And if you're not familiar with Partner Center, it's like a black box. It's really hard to navigate around and figure out where you're missing and pull the right levers and show the right connections. And we're finding that pretty tough. A friend of mine works in a pretty large European partner business, probably, regional partner. I don't think they're global, but they're big, one in Europe. He has 6 people in his alliance team. I presume doing a bit of marketing, lots of Microsoft relations. Do you think every partner needs to have an alliance manager? And where do you go to find one? Because it seems like a big overhead for a small business to have an alliance manager, and the big ones, can I afford to put somebody like that in place?
It's several really good questions there, Neil. Firstly, I would absolutely attest to the fact that they've probably got an incredibly well-functioning team, and depending on their size and scale, I would say it probably isn't over-egging the cake. Secondly, for scaling practices, or those that are smaller deliberately so, I would say it's not necessary to have a dedicated head, but absolutely to allocate an individual that's already as part of your business, or perhaps a fractional capability. Cheap plug for Oaka, sorry about that. And there are other organisations out there not dissimilar to us, to use them as the opportunity to have a focus on alliance. And with that, I think one of my key kind of tips for partners that are scaling or trying to build a more solid relationship with Microsoft is to ensure that you do have that focus to allow for the differentiation to shine through. We see alliance as 2 key areas. The first half is the programmatic side of things. Have you got the solution designations, the specializations? Are you programmatically adding your co-sell opportunities into Partner Center? Are you associating your customers? Are you associating your team with their certifications? That kind of stuff can be specifically, project managed almost. And so if there's a member of your team that's kind of really methodical, able to complete a finisher type, that is the roles and responsibilities for the programmatic side of the alliance relationship. The other side very much the other end of the spectrum. That's the relationship side. That's the who do I need to know? What do I need to say to them? What do they care about? What moves the needle for them? And how do I communicate with them effectively? That should absolutely be like a real storyteller, relationship builder, salesperson, account manager. And so if you are a scaling practice and you're looking to allocate individuals within your team to those two roles, you're really going to need to identify the personality types, I would say, before you kind of give them the roles and responsibilities.
Oh, the massive light bulb's just gone off there. Sorry.
Oh, really?
I'm so tired of the first half of that job. The checking the boxes, filling in the forms, making the connections, telling people what D-pour and C-pour and things are. That's not me. The second part I love. So, okay, stop trying to do both. I'll find somebody better to do the first part.
That's it. And I would say, it's kind of one of those stretch projects where a developer, a program manager, a product owner, it's going to just absolutely eat up. And it can be the kinds of things they schedule into their year. They understand the ramifications of timeframes and if this, then that. And that really is where you want them to own, the partner center stuff, basically. I would agree with you, Neil. That's absolutely not my bag whatsoever. At all. I understand why it needs to be done and I will do it and I can do it, but it's not, what comes most naturally to me. Whereas the other side of the spectrum, much, much more so. In terms of your other question around where to find individuals, if you are at the point where you think you could get a dedicated individual into your business to manage alliance, that is tough, and if you look at Glassdoor, I'm just going to use GBP prices here, but the latest kind of average salary for an alliance manager, Microsoft alliance manager specifically, is £103,000 a year, right? That's before you've even, it's huge. It's before you've even paid any, loaded costs or benefits or anything like that. So it's big, and it's very much a commitment that you're going to have to be certain is going to return you a value to your business. In terms of like the middle ground, I do think there's opportunity to take on individuals that haven't had an alliance role in the past and train them, and bring them up to speed. And quite a lot of what we do here at Oaka is kind of what we call knowledge transfer, not dissimilar, I'm sure, to what you do to some developers and your teams on projects, right? It's the do, share, watch, observe, make sure that they're bringing things on in the way that you'd anticipate. We see account managers do really well with that. We see pre-sales people do really well at that because they understand the product, but they also understand the value of relationships and value. So, I would say think outside the box if you're looking to take on a dedicated alliance manager, and you'll find someone with the right skill set.
Great. Love it. What are 3 or 4 things that successful partners are doing that everybody should be doing, but probably isn't?
Okay. I would leave you with just one. I'm going to do the most important one first, and that is focus, focus, focus. So many partners we speak to say, we can deliver all areas of the business application stack to all kinds of industries. And I don't doubt that you can't. And I understand the value and the joy of working with all sorts of different industries in all sorts of different regions, doing all sorts of different things. I get it. And I used to do it myself and I loved it. And variety is the spice of life. But whilst I'm not advocating for you to turn away inbound work that's across all different industries and all different areas of the business application stack, what I am saying is you outwardly need to be projecting as if you are specialists in one particular area, or 2 or max 3, right? I'm not saying close everything down, but in order to be memorable and remain in the hearts of minds of Microsoft sellers, even members of the market, the public, you need to be appearing to be serving one industry or a couple of industries with a specific thing. And I think that's even more important in the business application space than any of the other Microsoft solution areas because of the breadth of the capability, right? One minute you could be talking contact center, the next you could be talking field service, the next you could be talking low-code applications for HR or any other region. And I know I can see you smiling, and I can sure there's probably a day in the life of Neil Benson, right?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I went to a networking event recently along with a buddy, and I met a IT director. He just stepped out of his role to look after his wife, and he was, taking 6 months on. He was going to find a new role. And he asked me what I did, and I said, we build amazing applications for financial sector organizations and public sector organizations. We have that focus on 2 verticals. And my buddy's like, elbowing me going, don't say that. Just say you've got the best Microsoft business applications team in Brisbane, because you don't know what sector he's going to turn up in, but he knows you're in Brisbane. So I think there's marketing, and that focus is critical. But when you meet somebody at an event, just turn around and focus on them, make yourself relevant to them and their situation right now.
Absolutely. I very much like to come back to the absolutely not restricting partners from, having that kind of more tailored conversation. But when it comes to kind of investing in outbound marketing and going to find the next job, in order to be relevant, you've got to be able to speak the vocabulary. You'll know this, in your financial services experience. If you can't talk about onboarding a customer or KYC checks or mortgage approvals or whatever, even specifically within financial services, I would argue there's 6 or 7 focus areas. You won't have that relevance, and it's going to be hard for you to empathize with the CTO that has been a CTO of an investment bank for the last 20 years if you haven't got that kind of content, that vocabulary. So, and it's specifically the case within the Microsoft world, because if you're looking to use Microsoft as a channel for generating more opportunities, they're going to want to know why you're relevant to their space and have the confidence in positioning you to their customers. So, yeah.
Yeah, great advice.
It's a tough debate.
All right, so the flip side of that would be, are there any major mistakes that you see partners repeating all the time, apart from trying to be everything to everybody? Other, repeating mistakes that particularly scaling up partners trip over?
Yeah, I would say the biggest mistake we see is not giving, back to probably what we started this conversation with, not giving enough focus to the programmatic side of things, giving the partner center job to someone on the edge of their desk and not giving them the space or time to learn and think about it. Or, equally not giving them the KPIs or the OKRs to actually go after it and see it as value. And then leading on from that, I'd say alliance isn't kind of a one-time activity. It's a muscle that you build over time, in the same way you would do leadership or sales or demand generation or project management. It can't just be okay, we've got that solution designation, let's wait for the leads to come in, or we've got that specialization, let's just wait for the money to come. It is a muscle that needs building, and there's no harm in starting small and focusing on one area and building it up, but definitely don't take the foot off the gas. And don't take the foot off the gas too soon. We see quite a lot of partners go, well, I did that for 6 months and I saw no benefit.
Ah, okay. Yep.
That looked like it resonated. Yeah, definitely.
Do you see many partners succeeding because or despite they're polyamorous, right? They're partners with multiple software vendors, and they've been Amazon AWS partner and a Salesforce partner and a Google partner and a Microsoft partner. Can those partners be successful as a Microsoft partner? Or do you see most successful Microsoft partners just doing Microsoft stuff?
Oh, it's such a good question, Neil. I probably talk about this 3 or 4 times a week at the moment. There's 2 sides to this coin. I think if you're a large-scale partner with really well-established enterprise, huge customers, I think there's value to having vendor focus. And the reason I say that is because, the opportunities that you're getting passed from Microsoft or the ones that you're sharing and you're hoping to receive back, they're going to want to know that there isn't a prospective competitor that's also being catwalked into that account.
Yep.
On the other side of the spectrum, if you're scale up or you're even, fairly substantial, 150 seats, that sort of size and scale, I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility to potentially have a practice that focuses on another vendor. However, I do think there needs to be a really solid narrative that you're playing back into each vendor that says, this is why we choose Microsoft and this is when we choose Microsoft. Again, that might be industry related. That might be size and scale of customer related or opportunity. Whatever it ends up being, I think you need to be able to have that really solid story that goes, we only talk Microsoft in this industry. My only caveat to that is I have seen partners succeed in multiple vendors if they're on a journey from one to the other. Let's take automation as an example. UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism. We're seeing many of those partners see value in the Power Platform and see value in AI.
Yeah, me too.
I could go on about this forever and I will shut up in a minute, Neil. But the RPA partners are probably the most ready to talk generative AI, I would say, arguably, because they've talked about how their capability in the past, RPA, has replaced individuals, has replaced, time and has increased output of an organization. And that's ultimately what AI is doing. And those kind of robotic processes match that. And those partners, the Blue Prism one, the RPA, the other one that I just mentioned, that's
UiPath.
just slipped my mind. Thank you so much. We're seeing they're not investing as much in their partner ecosystem as they used to be. So when they were growing, those vendors, they were growing and they were getting investment from private equity firms. They were throwing money into the partner ecosystem. That's not there. These partners are also seeing value in the wider low-code stack that Power Platform offers, and they are migrating that way. And what they offer into the Microsoft ecosystem is the benefit of competitive understanding. They know how UiPath license, how Blue Prism license. They know how they take their solution to market, and they can use that insight not only to the market to talk about why Power Platform over those vendors, but they can use it to talk to Microsoft about, you should be thinking about these things because these guys are too, or they're not, or here's where they succeed, here's where they don't. So I realised that was 3 answers to one question.
That's great. That's great advice.
There's a place for all of them.
Yeah. We've got no designs to do anything else. But I do remember working at Slalom in the US, and we were in a big Microsoft customer service opportunity, and we were 4th demo out of 4 in a week. And my director decided to change up our strategy and demo Salesforce Service Cloud instead. And they were a big Microsoft shop,
Wow.
but they did have pockets of Salesforce around the place as well. So we thought, look, they've seen 3 Microsoft customer service demos. Like, we're just going to be up against the 3 other partners. Why don't we do something different? And when Microsoft found out, they went through the roof. It was very badly handled on our side.
Yeah.
And understandably, they got pretty upset. So you got to, like I said, have a good story, have a good narrative around why you support multiple vendors and when you choose one over the other, when you propose one over the other.
It is challenging, isn't it? Because the customer success person inside me always thinks it should be the best solution for the customer, right? It should be. But then, in many ways, they do the same thing, right? And there's generally the similar functionality across all these competitive spaces. It's just about how you implement it effectively. So, in many ways, I think that often, one vendor can do all things to most customers. So actually, bit of focus would help. I can only imagine what the Microsoft sales representative was thinking when he found out about the slalom thing.
No, it was pretty messy.
I imagine he did go through the roof.
And we didn't win with Salesforce either, by the way. It was a lost cause.
Good practice for a Salesforce demo, though.
Yeah. Imagine a partner's got everything in place. They've got a good alliance manager, a good pipeline of opportunities coming in, and they've got a little bit of budget left over to invest in something else. And imagine they've also got an app or two, or they've repeated a couple of projects in a certain subsector, and they've built up a little bit of intellectual property. They could bundle that up, create an app, publish it on AppSource with that budget, or they could invest in something like the partner awards and getting a consultancy to help them write a good case study and implement that and try and win some awards. What are some of the discrete investments that partners can make that really move the needle for them?
I think you touched on a lot of them there, Neil. I think case studies absolutely are the most important. And one of the pieces of advice that actually a fabulous chap in our team always gives, Nigel Ridpath, is one piece of content is a one piece of content, right? So if you're investing in, like, let's say a video case study with an exciting customer where you can get some incredible visuals of, I don't know, drilling or whatever it ends up being, I don't know. I can't think of any good examples other than that. I think use that content, create long form video, create long form written text because you don't know quite how the consumers are going to buy, create shorts and put them on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. We know that 80% of B2B buyers now are millennials. Right. So they're going to be consuming it's a huge stat. And I got that. I can't take any credit for that stat. That was Sam Bush from the Ambush on Air podcast. She presented at the Resco event that I was at last week. And I took some incredible knowledge from that. So if we think in the mindset of a CTO or a CIO or a buyer that we are trying to position to, we have to go out and find them where they are. And so investing in that content, like a case study, to tell the social proof of not just why Microsoft, but also why you. That should just be reused and reused and reused in multiple different ways. And, AI is here to help us rebuild that content, right? Like we've got the tools in our armory to make that easy for ourselves. So there's definitely that. And I think social proof, no matter what formatting comes in, is so important. And, leading on that, when we think about focus and we think about being laser onto one area, let's take that CTO that you met or the IT director that you met at that breakfast. When he lands a job, which he will, and he gets in contact with you because he was blown away at that networking meeting where he met you, you discover what industry he's in. And it's undoubtedly the case that you'll have a reference in that space because you've got such breadth in that capability. I would almost suggest getting a speaker from that customer at a round table, super small factor, 6 or 7 people for a lunch. Yes, it's going to cost you the lunch and a couple of bottles of wine. Bring in someone from that space where they've had a really good experience with you with their implementation of Dynamics or Power Platform, and get them to speak at that lunch. And it's really intimate. It gets them the opportunity to speak about their journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, and they can really empathize with the journey they've been on. So those roundtables just provide so much value. And if you can get a Microsoft speaker there, great. If you can get an industry specialist that's, bought and sold a business in that space as an after-dinner speaker as well, great, brilliant. Take loads of photos, put it all over LinkedIn. You'll get a huge amount of value out of that. Write a bunch of blogs out of the content that was spoken about. That kind of thing works really well.
I love that idea. We have 2 flagship customers, multi-million-dollar, multi-year engagements. Both of them have a no case study, no logo sharing policy.
Typical.
Cry. But I could definitely take the CIO from each organization and invite them to lunch with 3 or 4 peers in the industry and organize a conversation. That's easy. There's no logo sharing there, no breaching anybody's policy. They can declare the lunch on their gift register if they have to do that.
Exactly.
Love it. Great idea. Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah. No, pleasure. I've got a ton of these ideas, but I do think just getting that social brief out there is valuable in whichever format works best for you, because there is nothing, like you say, nothing more frustrating than not being able to talk about who you're working with. That said, what I will say is what you can share internally within Microsoft is the concept of a win wire, which you may or may not have done for those, which talks about, the value of the opportunity from a licensing perspective, why you guys won, how quickly you closed the deal, why you won it over competitive vendors, over competitive partners, and just share that internally. And I think communicating into Microsoft is almost as valuable as communicating outside of the organization, assuming you're saying the right thing at the right time. I mean, it's the 2nd of June, right? We're less than a month away from the end of Microsoft financial year. Now is not the time to be doing that. But
Microsoft becomes a very strange zoo in June. It's I don't, unless I've got a deal to close, I don't touch them. It's just,
Exactly. The other thing I would say, I think of awards are also incredibly valuable. As you rightly commented before we joined the podcast, Neil, we as Oaka not long attended and sponsored and were part of the Digital Revolution Awards that are run here in the UK. They run a UK-focused one, but also a global online awards, which is focusing on excellence in cloud or SaaS delivery projects. So it covers AWS, Google Cloud, Snowflake, Salesforce, but also Microsoft. And there is a fairly strong focus on the Microsoft element there. And what I would say is, and I had the pleasure of being a judge at these awards this year, the quality of the submissions is incredible. You can tell that they were all either handwritten, not ChatGPT or Copilot written, or really well supported with kind of videos or blog posts or podcasts that validated their submission. And I was, as I say, many of the awards were highly contested. Many of the winners, from many of the awards, the winners were also, there were highly commended submissions. So really goes to highlight kind of a partner's commitment to their customer base, but also to their technical and, innovation leadership. So highly recommend that. So they'd be my 2 areas, I'd say.
There was also a great reason just for the team to celebrate. If you get nominated, if you get finalist position, go for dinner and have a nice night out and celebrate. Just getting to that position, whether or not you win, it's a good excuse for, black tie and nice frock.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we loved it last week. I have to say, it was brilliant.
You mentioned licensing earlier. As a Microsoft Business Applications partner, we've been a little frustrated in a couple of deals. One with an enterprise customer who's on EA, another one who is a mid-market customer who bought their CRM licenses through another CSP, who they bought all the other stuff from, all their Azure and Office and Microsoft 365 from, who couldn't spell CRM and they got all the credit for the deal. And it was a little frustrating. You published a LinkedIn post a little while ago saying that there's a new innovation now that the transacting partner doesn't necessarily have to be the implementation partner, and both partners can get some recognition. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? It's very exciting.
Absolutely. This is like insanely exciting. And even while I'm talking about it now, it's giving me goosebumps. That's how nerdy I am about this stuff, right? And I will say, massive shout out to my dad, Ian Bourne, who I worked with at Cloud 2020 right at the start of my career. He's been campaigning for this stuff for over a decade, right?
Go in.
I think, yeah, go in, woo, and it's finally landed. So yeah, as you rightly identified, like historically, it's a bit of a land grab, right? Whoever gets that CSP recognition to start with gets that customer. They get the recognition of the seats, they get the recognition of the growth of the seats or the consumption, and they get, financial reimbursement for selling those licenses. So as of April the 7th of this year, that has changed. And now there is this concept of dual partner recognition or even multiple partner recognition. And this is where each partner can go on and claim partner of record for the specific workload that they have implemented. Now, what I will caveat this with is there's no financial rebate, but there is, as part of this CPOR association, it will count towards your solution designation.
Great.
So historically, that's game changing, right? And we, as you rightly said, we did this webinar to promote this capability, I want to say about 2 weeks after the capability landed. And we've heard stories of partners gaining their solution designation since, which is just brilliant. And it puts them on a really good stead for FY26 because it means they're immediately able to go and claim funding. They're immediately able to have more eloquent conversations with Microsoft, etc. Not to mention, you get a ton of internal user rights, right? So many of them were having to buy their own Dynamics licensing or Office 365. The solution designation gives them that back. So I would encourage partners that have struggled to get their solution designation to look into this, and I'll happily send the link to the recording of the webinar that we did, and actively go and make claims for workloads that they have deployed into their customers from the rule is that it's from January the 1st this year. So you can backdate some of these claims. You can go and say, we've been working on those from January. You do have to submit what's called a proof of execution, which basically is some kind of document, a statement of work or an MSA or even an email that demonstrates that it was you as a partner that did that implementation.
Oh, that's fair enough. Some evidence, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's evidence. We've seen these approvals kind of turn around within 24 to 48 hours. They can take up to 5 to 7 days, depending on if there's a debate. But it's really quite satisfying seeing those associations drop into a partner centre and then subsequently be recognised against your solution designation. It can really accelerate your journey to that.
On the other hand, Microsoft has also announced some new authorization requirements. So if you don't achieve solution designation, it's going to remain harder to be a Microsoft partner at all. That is the impression I get from that email. I don't know if there's any truth to that, or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree.
I'm not sure about that one, if I'm honest, Neil. I'll have to take a look into that. But I think, solution designation is definitely being seen as kind of the must-have as of FY26. And specializations right now are kind of really nice to have. They're going to become even more of a requirement. I don't think it's going to have an impact on you being a partner all up. As long as you have some kind of, the partner success pack or whatever they call it that, demonstrates you're on your way to getting a solution designation. But yeah, I don't think it should stop you from being a partner at all. But I will check that because, that's the first I've heard of that.
All right. Have you got enough time for a little question about AppSource?
Absolutely. Hit me up.
What's the deal with AppSource these days? Is it worth publishing apps? You can publish consulting services as well, both. And should partners think about transacting through AppSource or just using it as somewhere else to market their goods and services to prospective customers?
Brilliant question. Yes, definitely have a plan for AppSource. Maybe with my Microsoft hat, and I wouldn't have been allowed to say this, but whilst I would not say that it's going to become your number one route to net new customers, I would say it's a really, really valid shop front, not just for the 4 million monthly active users it gets, but also for Microsoft sellers themselves. So for those that don't know, the front end of AppSource, you publish your services and solutions through Partner Center, they get published to AppSource. Assuming you fill in the right boxes and you tick the right check boxes, they also publish to Microsoft's co-sell solution finder that's inside Microsoft and syncs directly into their own internal CRM solution, MSX. So when a seller is architecting a deal, there is actually genuine AI that feeds back on solutions and services from AppSource, which is great, right? So, it's another reason to be found. In terms of IP and whether I think you should list transactable solutions, again, I think it really depends on what your focus is as an organization. If you have some capability, be it horizontal or solution area, which is incredibly wrapped up, you've already got it, it can be solutionized, it can be deployed autonomously, yes, absolutely get it up there as a transactable solution because you've almost got nothing to lose. Yes, there's a bit of a process getting it there, but I think there's a huge amount of value. Also, there's a lot of eyes on internal Microsoft partner resources to get more transactable solutions on AppSource, right? So it's only going to gain you a bunch more credibility in your region of the Microsoft subsidiary you relate to. If, however, let's take you guys as an example, if you've got a focus on financial services and you've got an accelerator that helps with, the standard entities and business process flows and journeys, customer journeys, etc., that relate to that industry, don't worry about getting that transactable, but definitely put it up there as an accelerator because it's going to, again, help to identify your differentiation as a partner, help to demonstrate your specialism and your experience in that area. And you can have it as what's a contact us listing, right? So whether the customer reaches out to you via AppSource and is able to interact with your pre-sales or your sales journey that way. And I think there is huge value in that. As I say, particularly from a co-sell solution provider perspective, if you want to positioning it into Microsoft. We've had examples of partners here in the UK getting opportunities from all sorts of different regions because Microsoft sellers in other regions have said, we don't have anything like this in the US. The example I had recently was they didn't have any solution for private equity firms. And so a partner I was working with had a great solution for that on AppSource, and it was the PDMs of both partners were able to put them in touch with each other. Great, Perfect. Great reference case. Yeah. So I would invest in it. I would say if you're going to do a contact us solution, just bear in mind you have to get the accelerator or the IP through that technical approval process, and you only have to update it every 6 months. So put in just the right amount of effort to get that technical solution approved, but don't worry about it too much.
Awesome. Lucy, that's you've been a goldmine today. I really appreciate you coming on. I know it's early in the morning in the UK. We've covered alliance managers and a bit about Partner Center and awards and marketing customers who don't allow marketing, case studies and things. The importance of solution designations. I have learned heaps and taken away a lot. I'm going to put some links in the episode description about the recent webinar that you did on the, what do you call it?
Dual recognition stuff.
Dual recognition.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's a word for it. Links to Oaka Studio. Is there anything else people can do to follow your work and get in touch?
My number one recommendation would be our LinkedIn channel. We put all of our events, webinars, we do loads of in-person events as well as webinars on there. And feel free to contact us on there as well. That would be the number one source of information from my side.
Great. Lucy, thank you so much. You've been amazing. Thanks, Lucy, for joining me on Practice Leading. There are links to Lucy's LinkedIn profile and Oaka Studio, as well as a link to the replay of that dual recognition webinar if you're running a business apps practice that has ever lost out on recognition to an invoicing CSP. There were so many knowledge bombs in today's episode. Can we still say knowledge bombs, value bombs? It's 2025. I don't know. And I'll include a summary of all of them in the episode download, and you can get that when you join the Practice Leading mailing list. But here are my 3 key takeaways from my episode with Lucy. Microsoft partnerships have changed. If you've been in the Microsoft community for any length of time, you'll have realized that the days of easily acquiring a gold competency they're long gone. It's harder to achieve a solution designation, and the benefits are better, but maybe the margins aren't. Number 2. Alliance management takes at least 2 skill sets. Lucy identified the need for an ongoing operational role from someone able to focus on Partner Center, maintaining your solution designations and registering opportunities, keeping them up to date. There's also another role for someone able to connect and build relationships with Microsoft sellers in your local subsidiary. And it's unlikely that one person has the temperament for both. So it's going to take some teamwork. 3. Multiple vendor partnerships are possible, but harder. Smaller partners will need to have a compelling narrative behind their reasons for having partnerships with other vendors. One might be that a systems integrator who's transitioning from HubSpot or UiPath over to Microsoft. We also covered investing in marketing, especially in case studies where you can't name your customers due to confidentiality, and in industry awards, enlisting on AppSource, and when to communicate your successes inside Microsoft. Join the Practice Leading Lab mailing list for a summary of all the key takeaways from Lucy. Visit practiceleading.com and enter your first name and email on the homepage. Or click on the link in the episode description and you'll receive an invitation to the free tier of the Practice Leading community, where you'll find a download for every episode. Until next time, keep experimenting. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Practice Leading and found it useful. If you did, please follow the Practice Leading page on LinkedIn, where you can leave comments on each episode or a follow-up question for our guests. Just search LinkedIn for Practice Leading and follow the page. Until next time, keep experimenting.